Hello everyone. I wanted to put together a short guide to help you as you move from the pre-writing exercise that you turned in last week to the paper you are writing for critical task number 1. Sometimes it can be difficult to take all of your ideas and put them into a coherent, thoughtful essay. I hope this guide will help. For this exercise, I'm going to use a sampler pre-writing template that I created to show you how I would personally go about turning this into a paper. There's not one way of doing this, but I like to have things super organized as I'm going into writing a paper. So I don't want you to take this as the only way to write or the only way to get a good grade, but rather as one way you might think about approaching this assignment. I'm going to be working with the affirmative action topic, but you will be able to take my advice and apply it to the existence of God topic as well. Some people don't like to start their papers by writing the introduction, but for me this works really well. I don't like to think of the introduction as an afterthought because it contains the most important part of your paper, which is your thesis statement. The best thesis statement will state your argument or your position clearly and concisely. I think the best thesis statements are ones that read like a roadmap of your paper. You don't have to state, in this paper, I'm going to argue X, but you do want to be very clear about what position you are going to be taking. Now, the next thing I want to show you is how to write a solid paragraph. I like to use something called the Schaefer model to construct my paragraphs. Here's what it looks like. This is typically taught as a 5-sentence paragraph, and that's what I'll be using here just for the sake of brevity. But you should also know that there's plenty of room for modification. Your concrete detail, for example, may span 2 sentences, and your commentary may span 4 or more sentences. I'll show you how I would use a Schaefer model to construct my introduction. First, I need a topic sentence. Here's where I want to advise you to avoid cliches. Don't start out with something like, from the beginning of time, man has been concerned with equality. That can be really cheesy. Just pick something broad, but not too broad, to introduce your paper. The next thing you want to have is some kind of concrete detail. For this paper, I think it would be a really good place to introduce the concept of affirmative action. Now, once we get to the commentary, here's where your own argument comes in. A traditional Schaefer model has 2 sentences devoted to commentary. You could use your second sentence to address the devil's advocate view, or you could use it to further reinforce your argument. And finally, the concluding sentence in your introduction will be your thesis statement. Let's see what this looks like. We've got my topic sentence, which is kind of broad, but not really generic. Next, for my concrete detail, I used Judith Boss's definition of affirmative action. I stated my argument as the first line of commentary, and then for the second sentence of commentary, I stated a really brief version of the devil's advocate view. Then, finally, my concluding sentence is my thesis statement. I went through the same process for my first paragraph, my first body paragraph, which is reason 1 from my pre-writing template. This is probably a good time to state that I'm writing a 6-paragraph essay here. My introduction is paragraph 1. Reason 1 is my second paragraph. Reason 2 is my third paragraph. The devil's advocate side is my 4th paragraph. My response to the devil's advocate is my 5th paragraph, and my conclusion is my 6th paragraph. But you can use any kind of paragraph structure that works best for your paper. I'll skip reason 2 and show you how I developed my devil's advocate view, using the same Schaefer model. I've got my topic sentence, which is kind of a broad summary of what that devil's advocate view is. The concrete view is a specific argument someone would give as evidence for their position. I've got some evidence in the commentary here, and I wrap it all up with a concluding sentence. As far as your paper's conclusion goes, try to keep it simple. Restate your thesis using different language if at all possible, and go back and revisit the evidence you have provided as proof supporting your thesis. But don't go through it all, because you don't want to repeat yourself. And then finally, I try to come up with a short but sweet final sentence that reinforces the thesis. I always write the conclusion last, and I think it's the easiest part of the paper since all the work is already done. A couple of things to note here at the end. Don't forget to include a bibliography or a works cited page. This is necessary for anything you have directly quoted from, but also for anything you've paraphrased. If you use the textbook, you'll want to cite that too. I was in graduate school writing papers, and I still consulted the Purdue University Online Writing Lab when I had to create my bibliographies. It is a great resource. Also, please be sure to ask any questions, preferably a couple of days before the deadline, so I can get back to you in a timely fashion. Best of luck!